The old man's eyes open slowly in the hospital, ICU. His face is bruised, one eye swollen nearly shut, a brace across his broken clavicle. Standing beside the bed, tail wagging, is a dog with a faint mark still visible through his fur, where police had to use a stun gun to make him let go. Ned Tarmy looks at the animal and says the words that would later be replayed by news stations across the country, that this dog saved his life. To understand why he says that, you have to go back 3 days to a house on Pine Avenue in Manchester, New Hampshire, and a night that started like any other. Ned Tarmy was 86 years old. He lived with his nephew's family, and that night, he was home with only one companion, the family dog, Kane. Kane was a rescue, adopted from a shelter in Derry about a year earlier. By every account from the people who knew him, he was gentle, affectionate, the kind of dog people describe as sweet, not protective, not aggressive, just a dog who liked being near his family. Just after 1 a.m., Kane started to fuss near the back door. Ned assumed he needed to go outside. It was a routine he had done countless times before. He walked downstairs, opened the door, and stepped into a night that was about to become anything but routine. Standing there, in the dark, was a man Ned had never met. He was 55 years old, a neighbor named Donald Pierce, and he was completely naked. According to Ned's family, Pierce began screaming that he was there to kill him. Almost immediately, an object struck Ned. Police say Pierce threw a brick, along with rocks and pieces of lawn furniture. Ned Tarmy, 86 years old, alone in his own backyard, was suddenly fighting for his life against a man half his age, in the middle of the night, for no reason he could understand. There had been no history between them, no dispute, no prior encounter. Investigators later learned that Pierce had been involved in a separate physical altercation with a woman earlier that same night, before making his way toward Ned's property. Whatever had happened before, Ned had no part in it. He simply opened a door. Inside the house, Kane heard what was happening. What came next was not a trained response. Kane had no background as a guard dog or a police K9. He had spent the last year of his life being, by all descriptions, an ordinary family pet. But when Pierce continued attacking Ned, striking him with his fists and with a chair, Kane moved. He threw himself onto Pierce and pinned him to the ground. According to Ned's family, Kane bit down and held on, refusing to let go even as the struggle continued. Whatever instinct took over in that moment, the effect was immediate. The attack that had been aimed entirely at an 86-year-old man now had a 100-pound obstacle standing, quite literally, in the way. Neighbors began to stir. Someone called 911. When Manchester police arrived at the address on Pine Avenue, officers found a chaotic scene. A man lying on the porch covered in blood, and another man standing beside him, still naked, still enraged. According to police, Pierce turned on the responding officers, yelling threats and charging at them. It took multiple officers and multiple uses of a stun gun to finally bring him under control. Kane was still holding on. He would not release his grip, not even as police tried to intervene, and officers ultimately had to use a stun gun on the dog as well, just to get him to let go. The mark it left was still visible in his fur days later, the same mark Ned would notice from his hospital bed. Ned Tarmy was rushed to the hospital with injuries that would keep him in intensive care. A brain bleed, fractures across his face and around his eye, a broken arm, a broken clavicle. Kane needed emergency veterinary care of his own. Neither of them knew, in those first chaotic hours, whether the other had survived the night. What happened over the next several days, as Ned fought to recover, and as his family tried to make sense of what Kane had done for a man who had rescued him only a year before, would lead to the moment neither of them could have predicted. A hospital room, a reunion, and a dog who refused, then and now, to leave his side. Pierce was placed in handcuffs and taken into police custody as officers worked to stabilize the scene. He faced a long list of charges: first-degree assault, second-degree assault under domestic violence statutes, criminal threatening, criminal mischief, 4 counts of simple assault, criminal trespassing, indecent exposure, and cruelty to animals. He was held pending a probable cause hearing. Nothing about that night had been planned or provoked. Ned and Pierce had never met before that morning. At the hospital, doctors worked to assess the full extent of Ned's injuries. He had a brain bleed, a broken clavicle, a broken arm, fractures across his face and around his eye, For a man of 86, the kind of blunt trauma he had absorbed in those few minutes in his own backyard was serious enough that his family described him as fighting for his life in the days that followed. He was moved into intensive care, where doctors could monitor him closely. Kane needed treatment of his own. The stun gun deployment that had finally made him release his grip on Pierce left a visible mark through his fur, and he was taken for emergency veterinary care. For a dog who had spent the last year of his life doing nothing more dramatic than living inside a family home, the physical toll of that night was real, even if it paled next to what he had prevented. News of the attack spread quickly through Manchester, and then further, picked up by local television stations and eventually national outlets. What caught people's attention wasn't just the strangeness of the attack itself, a naked stranger appearing without warning and attacking an elderly man for no discernible reason, but the detail that kept repeating in every version of the story. A family pet, with no training and no history of aggression, had placed himself between his owner and a man twice his size, and had not backed down. Ned's nephew, Jeff Tarmy, spoke to reporters in the days after the attack, still visibly shaken. He explained that the family had adopted Kane from a shelter in Derry only about a year earlier, with no expectation that the dog would ever be asked to do anything more than be part of the household. Now, he was crediting that same dog with saving his uncle's life. He said plainly that if Kane hadn't intervened, Pierce would likely have kept attacking Ned until he killed him. As Ned's condition stabilized, he was moved out of intensive care. It was around this time that his family arranged for him to see Kane again. The reunion took place inside the hospital, the two of them together for the first time since the attack. Video of the moment shows Ned, still bruised, still recovering, reaching toward the dog with visible emotion, telling him what a good boy he was, thanking him for saving his life. It was a small moment, quiet compared to the violence that had brought them there, but it carried the full weight of everything that had happened in between. A dog who had been given a second chance a year earlier had, without hesitation, given one back. Ned Tarmy continued his recovery in the weeks that followed, working through the physical toll of his injuries with his family by his side, and with Kane there too. His family said that, despite everything, his spirit remained intact, and that Kane would be part of his rehabilitation going forward, the two of them recovering together the way they had faced that night together. Pierce remained in custody as the legal process moved forward, the full circumstances of that night still being sorted out by investigators. But for Ned's family, the outcome that mattered most had already been decided in the dark, in the space of a few seconds, when a dog with no training and no obligation chose to act anyway. There is no way to know exactly what Kane understood in that moment, no way to put words to an instinct that doesn't need them. What is clear is what happened because of it. An 86-year-old man is alive today because a rescue dog, adopted without any expectation beyond companionship, decided that companionship meant something more when it counted. If Kane's loyalty moved you the way it moved the people who heard this story, say so in the comments, and tell us what stayed with you. And if stories like this one matter to you, stay close, because there are more true stories about the bond between people and animals still waiting to be told.